The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi there, and welcome from Studio 27 in Sacramento, California, and to our other panelists across the United States, to today's webinar, Smarter Streets, Case Studies for Cities and Utilities, how the City of Baltimore and Washington Gas reduced their cost and improved right-of-way coordination, sponsored by Invista and hosted by WebAttract, your end-to-end solution provider for informational webinars. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar with Invista, they're based out of Boston, and what they do is provide organizations a web-based solution for making operational decisions with greater efficiency by being able to enable the real-time exchange of schedules for the improved coordination and construction of maintenance projects. And it's built, these projects that are built and maintained by utility companies and government agencies. So you're going to hear quite a bit about that today, but I'd also like to take a moment and thank our special media sponsor, Directions Media, the voice of all things location, for being a sponsor of an additional sponsor of today's webinar. You know, we have quite a large amount of interest in today's webinar. There's a global audience, 38 countries, over 700 people have registered, and as you can tell, cutting across a lot of the different functions in this particular area. So we're delighted to have you here, and regardless of your role or industry or particular focus, we're confident you're going to get value out of today's webinar. And actually, what you told us you were interested in, and we really appreciated your input, are these topics. And we're going to cover many of these and some more during today's webinar. So these are the things that you should keep an eye on, and we absolutely want to take as many of your questions as possible. So let's move right into the beginning. We have quite a bit to cover. And as I showed you on the last slide, a lot of interest was around what are some of the industry trends? What does Invista see as their role, and quite frankly, why Invista? What is the value proposition that Invista brings? There's probably nobody better to talk about that than Mark Fagan, who's not only the Executive Vice President, he's a co-founder of Invista. And he's going to come on in just a moment and talk about some of the trends, but let me give you a little bit of background on Mark. He co-founded the LEA Group's asset management software business, which was acquired by Vanderweil Engineers and later on became Vanderweil Facility Advisors. While he was there, he led the company as the president, and prior to founding Invista, he was the director of new initiatives at Reed Business Information, where he oversaw product planning and strategic alliances for the construction products division for such products as cost estimating and building information modeling, or BIM. Mark, we're absolutely delighted to have you, and I'd like to officially welcome you to today's webinar and turn the microphone over to you.
Great, thanks, Mike. Welcome and thanks to our audience attending, and as well to our panelists. We're thrilled by the attendance, both North American as well as international. We believe by this high attendance that this is a real top-of-mind, very important issue to our audience. And I want to give you a little bit of background on Invista. From the personnel side, we're a bunch of industry veterans from the software industry. We've been building software for civil engineering, CAD products, asset management, and GIS systems. The senior managers come from such companies with backgrounds such as Autodesk, Bentley Systems, and TomTom. What we heard from our customers when we were building these types of systems was the need to provide an interaction and communication between all the disparate players in the right-of-way, from government agencies and utilities. As well, by way of background, and what's telling about our installations that we presently have is we have installations presently from Austin to Edmonton and Washington to Sacramento. And we're presently looking at engagements with Al Ain in the United Arab Emirates, as well as London and Helsinki. So what I want to speak to a little bit is the opportunity and what we've created in our application. So what we heard was there was a huge void with all these agencies and utilities that I just mentioned who were about doing work within the right-of-way. To all intents and purposes, they were blind to each other regarding the planning and construction activities that occurred in the right-of-way. This included government agency to government agency to private utility companies, and everybody, the customers, which was basically the public. The result was waste, duplicative work with repaving projects and work that had just been completed for paving, a destruction of the right-of-way assets with utility cuts in newly paved road or premature deterioration of roads based on utility cuts, and ignorance of what's happening in the right-of-way. For an example, the mayor's office understanding why some certain projects are occurring without any knowledge. And ultimately, this created a situation of poor service to customers and basically confidence or lack of confidence with respect to the operations. So the drivers for our customers was to reduce the operational cost, stop repaving and have to deal with prematurely deteriorating roads, coordinate more efficiently, better operational decisions, real-time information, spatial. It's all about where it's located spatially, and temporal, that meaning time. Time is critical relative to all these coordination projects. And ultimately, it's better services for our customers, both internal and external. And so the outcome to these drivers as we listen to customers is what we built. Fundamentally, it's a solution by which utility companies and municipalities can exchange and synchronize infrastructure construction project schedules in an internet map-based application. It can identify and resolve conflicts, depict moratoriums, identify opportunities for joint work, check permit applications against work, and moratoriums. Indeed, based on this platform, and again, by listening to our customers, we've extended the application to include the following products, which have to do with now event planning within the right-of-way, incident management, which includes emergencies such as water main breaks, traffic management associated with the two I just mentioned, and ultimately now full life cycle permit application management within the right-of-way. So the challenges that we had when we were developing the application and building the solution was that we had to build a scalable solution. There's large amounts of data that we had to acquire from our customers. We had to make the data real time as well, for lack of a better word, we use the term data jungle. Everybody manages to have different formats of data, text, GIS, database, spreadsheets, etc. It's amazing the kinds of different sets of information that we receive from our customers and have to convert that into spatial representations. And the last is just converting all this to a geospatial representation, again, relative to all these different formats. And the last point is the fact that we had to make this intuitive and easy to use. We had to be able to have people that didn't have GIS experience to be able to manage and enter this information. And we've deployed this as a software as a service configuration. It's a requirement. This has to be a neutral source. It's not behind anybody's firewall. And how we did this is we utilized industry-leading technologies. Fundamentally, the foundation of our service is Oracle Spatial 11G. This was critical from a scalability, security, and performance standpoint. As well, we utilize ADCI NavTech map data. We needed the best accuracy map data source to be basically a universal representation for the roadway, background, and the ability to geolocate attributes within the map. And finally, Esri is basically how we create the visualization, and we perform the geocoding, and we create the routing within the application. These were core to our implementation of the technology. And basically, what we've been able to achieve through this is, in summary, to drive the communication between those disparate entities, to drive substantial cost savings. Our application is basically months to a return on investment. You'll hear a bit about this from our presenters. And now, in our next release, we're creating the ability to model the cost savings opportunity so we can identify return on investment literally in pre-sales or upon immediate implementation. And the other points here are quick to implement. We're talking about implementing our product in weeks, not years, in almost all cases where there's data available. And finally, to provide access across agencies, departments, public, and the ability to demonstrate how valuable the program is within your institution. And finally, I just want to leave with the thoughts about the industry's trends that we're starting to see. What we're seeing is a real drive for better practices, particularly in government. They're business-oriented results for improved processes, reduced cost, and better performance. In fact, this terminology that's starting to emerge in the industry, people may have seen in the press this concept of Gov 2.0 or e-commerce or even government to business or G2B. So we're really excited to see what's going on in the industry. We believe these are watershed changes, and we're excited to be part of it. And with that, I conclude my introduction.
Well, thank you, Mark. And that was very helpful. We're now going to move to the portion that I mentioned earlier. We'd love to get some feedback from you in the audience. We're going to launch our first poll. And the question is, and I'm going to bring it up on the screen, and all you need to do is to use your mouse. So let me launch the poll. And if you would tell us, what are your most pressing business problems today? And you can check all that apply. Mark, you might want to stick around, and we'll share the results and see if you have any comment on that. So right now we're seeing quite a few people have voted. I'm going to keep the polls open and allow everybody who would like an opportunity to contribute their perspective to go ahead and do it. And these results are quite interesting as they're coming back. So it looks like we've probably got a good amount, but I'm going to keep it open for another 10 or 15 seconds. And then we'll share the results, close the poll, and then we're going to bring on the first of our case studies, which will be with Margaret B. Martin, the City of Baltimore. She's got an exciting story to tell, and she'll be followed by Daryl Jackson from Washington Gas, who also has a very exciting story to tell. So I'm going to keep this open for about another 15 seconds, and if you'd like to go ahead and give us your input, please do so. And I'm now going to close the polls and thank everybody for voting, and let's share the results. What it looks like is that approximately 31% say providing greater transparency of decision making, followed by 61% of more better integrated information, 70% for improving communications internally and externally, 50% for protecting newly paved streets, and 66% for eliminating duplicated effort and waste. Mark, I'm curious, how do those numbers align with what you've seen?
Basically, I think that they're right on. Of interest to me would be improving communication internally and externally. It's not typically communicated to us from the customer's perspective, but I'm very pleased to see that as one of the higher requirements.
Well, great. Well, thanks. Stick around. We'll have you back in just a bit. And now I want to move to the next portion of today's webinar, which is to introduce and bring on Margaret B. Martin, professional engineer with the City of Baltimore. And let me tell you a little bit about Margaret. She manages from General Services the Design and Construction Division for the City of Baltimore. And what that division does is they provide building, engineering, and construction and inspection services for city-owned or operated buildings. And that includes administering contracts for constructions, alteration of public buildings, as well as providing general service permits. She's got a tremendous story to tell. We're very excited to have her here. And she's been a key proponent of right-of-way coordination and indefinite quantity contracting. Those are both new functions being implemented by the division. So Margaret, welcome to the webinar. I'd now like to officially turn the microphone over to you and have you begin your discussion.
Thank you, Mike. I'm just going to jump right in here because I'm sure our audience wants to hear what my case study is all about. Before coming to General Services with Baltimore City, I was with their transportation department, and before that I was the Public Works Director at Annapolis. So I've got sort of a perspective from multiple different directions. I've basically been spending 10 years grappling with this coordination issue. I suspect that it's everybody's problem. This is a universal sigh of, help us, help us, help us. And I think that what we have on the horizon now is help. This is a little profile of Baltimore. You're either the same, bigger, or smaller, but here's our stats. And what I wanted to communicate here is that the City of Baltimore in the last few years has made an enormous commitment to our roadways. We started a program called Operation Orange Cone, and what it has done is it verifies that City Hall values our roadways as a quality of life issue. I'd say in the last few years we've made a massive investment. We have paved over 600 lane miles in the last 3 years, which is about 8% of our road stock. And we have also initiated a survey of all of our roads, a pavement condition index survey. 3 years ago we surveyed the entire roadway network, and we'll be doing that again this spring. And that's the basis of our quality assessment of our network. With this investment, all right, was also a focus from City Hall and others that when people cut into the beautiful new investment, they got very upset. And so there was drivers from every single direction to make more efficient use of our investment dollars, meaning why are you cutting into that new pavement? So here's our challenge. This is going to be the same challenge as everyone else has. You've got separate entities managing the roadways, the water utilities, gas. We have conduit, underground conduit in our city as an old city. And I know everybody's got separate divisions for capital and maintenance. So you got that whole separate thing going on. Then you've got the private developments, driving independently. And here's one I really want to focus in on, and that is the retiring workforce. That is a national issue. We basically have our institutional knowledge walking out the door, and it's pretty scary. So this is kind of a race to try to capture that information in this arena before that happens. The other thing I wanted to point out is we have a city stat. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but it's kind of a national recognized program. But it's the mayor's office. Every operational department has to report up to the mayor's office every 2 weeks. It can be on a whole litany of issues. But basically what CityStat does is it drives a vertical and horizontal integration across city services. It's challenging, but you see the results. What we have is we have a street cut inspection group. Some people will say, how do you know all this? And we have a small inspection crew that goes around every day, every week, and inspects all the street cuts. How were we doing what we were doing? We were doing these face-to-face overview monthly meetings, and I was doing those, and I have to tell you that those 4-hour meetings, it was killing me because it was so boring. Everyone would come to the meeting with their little spreadsheets with their projects, and you'd have to go through every single one and chit-chat about every single one, and then hope that you didn't miss anything. Okay? So you had that meeting on a monthly basis, and sometimes people, the right people weren't there, blah, blah, blah. So then you have emails and phone calls and more meetings, and then those were just the project managers, the engineers. In addition, you have other people who play into all these projects, and they're not necessarily at that meeting, but how do you have to, you still have to communicate with those people. So it's just too many meetings and too few staff. Everyone was losing it. And one of the greatest challenges when I started trying to, herd these cats was the two big or three big players in the public right-of-way, if you will, for infrastructure is gas, water, and roads. Gas and water being the two primary pressure systems are always having their problems because they're old systems. We also have steam, but that's in our downtown area only. But water and gas account for 90% of the street cuts. And then you have the roads. And so our road program, that was on a spreadsheet. But Public Works Water uses the GIS Esri, and BGE uses the GIS Small World. And those are their legacy systems. And they didn't want to both of them didn't want to give up the other one. And that's that's understandable. These are great investments. And both entities didn't want to give the other entity access. And again, another issue. It's a security issue. They don't know who's reading this information. And, people who are responsible for these systems, they're also accountable. So I was kind of at a brick wall on that front. So you had that challenge, and then you have all these, everybody doing their own little capital program and their maintenance program. And then the heavens opened up, and one of my counterparts at BG&E said, "Hey, Margaret, I just heard about this thing called Invista. Maybe you'd like to check it out. Here's their website." Well, I I went to their website, and I literally read every single word on every single page on that website, and I just couldn't believe it. So I called them up, and I said, you better be for real, or this is not going to be a happy camper. And what they're offering, and what they are offering, is true infrastructure coordination. Ease of access. All you have to do is have your computer and network, web access, and boom, you get on with your little ID and password. The data is secure. They host the data. It's a simple design, and it's a very short learning curve, and it is affordable. I think we've been involved now for two years, and that may seem like a long time to you, but it's what we've done in those 2 years is truly phenomenal. We've captured all of our capital programs. We have BGE with all their gas programs. We have DOT with all their road programs. We have DPW with all their different water programs. And I'm going to tell you some of the other things we have. So let's see. I wanted to throw out in terms of affordable. The same week we signed up for Invista, we had a little issue where our water people cut into a brand new road, and the cost of repaving that road would have paid for 3 years of the Invista fee. I'm a very visual person, and I have to have maps, and those spreadsheets didn't do it. I could not. I was coming to Baltimore, and I could not visualize all these streets. I didn't know them, and so here, this is the normal view. This is the normal screen of Invista. Look at that map. Those are the maps you always see on the website. And so, and all those things in there, there's a little water projects and little paving projects and little gas projects, and they're all listed there. So you can look at them on the picture, or you can look at them below that. It's really a spreadsheet, line item. And then on the left is you can filter anything. You can filter date, you can filter utility, you can filter planned, however you have entered the information. But what's so wonderful about this is that, as you can appreciate, we have massive, some people don't appreciate how difficult it is to manage these capital programs, these large infrastructure operations. And it's not so simple as, well, why didn't he tell you he was going to cut into your road? Everybody's on their different track. And so, okay, here's another one. Here's another, what you see here is a conflict, all right? You've got water, that's the blue one, and the paving is the gray one. And those are two little snapshots, summary of those two projects and a little line item of the conflict that's jumping up. When you see the program, there's additional information that can be viewed, but it's so nice because all those things that you don't want to think about are taken for you so that you can focus on the issue at hand. The right team. What Invista does for us is we probably have 7 entities that are really the main players, and having this common platform lends structure to our communication and our coordination and our mission. What I have found is that even though we work for the city or a private utility company or other, we have a mission to make this data the best it can be so that we can all work together. It's a team approach. It's certainly helped the city and to bring our programs together, and it's just been fantastic. This is just a fuzzy-wuzzy picture that, you got to put your glasses on. This is what happens is, say you have a conflict with somebody and you want to talk to them about it, you just click on that little conflict, and it will develop and email all the information that you don't want to type. The standard information about that project jumps up, so all you have to do is focus on the message. What Invista does, what we don't have in the construction industry is a tool whereby we can share the elemental factors of any particular project, and that is who's in charge of the project, what are you doing, is it a road, water, blah, blah, yada, how do I contact you, phone number, email, what are the dates of the project, and what are the limits of the project. And just by sharing that information on an accessible basis, 24/7 on a standard platform is truly phenomenal. And so what does it do for us? It enables us to manage our right-of-way. And it also provides for a predictable program. And not only is that important with the city, it's also important in the business community. The more predictable a program is, they've eliminated the unknowns, and it just helps business enormously. I think that was one of the big selling points with BG&E. And what we're trying to do now is to push out our plan, our paving plan, for 2 years. Right now we have it out for 1 year, and we're trying to get it to 2 years so that the utilities will be aware of what the paving program is, so that we can say, okay, can we push back that paving program if I got in there and replaced my gas line? And we're encouraging both the water and the gas people to go test their lines once they have that kind of lead time. So it's totally cool. And so what does this do for us? It gives us a longer life of new pavement, which is what we want. Okay, what this is, even though I saw how immensely beneficial it was from an operational standpoint, I knew that there are people who have to see dollar signs and, show me the money kind of thing. And so this is a nice graphic that the Invista folks put together for me, showing that we had a lot of unrealized savings because we didn't know what we didn't know. And what this shows is like the realized savings are, okay, we got our act together and we coordinated and we did save money. And then there's the potential that we didn't quite get our act together and missed that boat. And then the unrealized is we didn't know what we didn't know. But with Invista, our savings, the realized savings has grown amazing. And then in addition to minimizing the unrealized and the potential is the fact that we have happy people working on this program. We have happy colleagues with organized programs, and we have much happier political leadership. Okay, so where are we going with this? All right, this is what we've done is the construction coordination. This is the tool for construction coordination. But in the process of doing this, light bulbs were going off everywhere, and people saw different things that they can say, hey, can I use it for this? Can I use it for that? And so we spun off quite a few different demands to the Invista folks, and here is one, is permits. We do have an in-house automated permit review process, but it doesn't tell us, who has the permit, how long has it been on their desk, and it doesn't tell us where that permit is. It's the geographical aspect of where is that permit in light of all other construction. So we've just jumped up board on with that one to automate our permit tracking with the mapping of all other right-of-way activities, and also manage the review times and the distribution. Special events are like parades and runs and parties and all that good stuff that are activities within the public right-of-way that we have to manage, just like construction, just so that we don't have, a run going right through a construction site, which has happened. This is a little picture of our trial event last year. It's only the biggest event in Baltimore, but we made Mark Fagan help us throw together the detour route for the Baltimore Marathon. We literally did it in 2 hours with 5 different sites working on the internet on Thursday night, and the race was on Saturday. We did not have a single complaint from that race. We posted it to our website, and then we pushed out the map to the media, and it was totally awesome. And that's where we want to go for all of our special events, so that people can see what is going on, when it's going on. And then our next initiative that we're working on is incident management. This particular screenshot is we had a massive water main break at the intersection there, and the intersection's pretty much sank. And what this is going to do is give common platform for the emergency management folks, the public works, the public information people, police, fire, and transportation, and on-site, and it's just going to be phenomenal. So I ran through that pretty quick, but I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Margaret. Is there any thought you might want to leave the audience with on this point? You did a terrific job of reviewing the benefits of the City of Baltimore.
Well, actually, I do. I feel as if we have a technology tool for the construction community that supports integrated strategic cooperation and across-the-board cost savings. And how does this look? How does this benefit look to the public? It's really beautiful, smooth roads with less traffic congestion. It's that simple. And I also want to put a plug in for the Invista folks. I have just been so impressed with how smart and talented that team is and the phenomenal support that we've gotten over the last 2 years.
Thank you very much, Margaret, and stick around. We're going to have you back in just a bit. But now, for those of you that may have just joined us, we've just heard from Margaret B. Martin from the City of Baltimore, and prior to that, we heard from Mark Fagan, who's one of the co-founders of Invista, to hear about some of their vision and some of the industry challenges and opportunities. And now we're going to shift to our second and final case study, because today our case studies focus both on cities and utilities, and we're going to hear from Daryl Jackson, who's with Washington Gas. And let me just tell you a little bit about Daryl. He heads and leads the Operations Work Planning, Measurement, and Technology Department at Washington Gas. And this department is part of the Operations Business Unit of the company, and it schedules various types of leak survey work as well as updates operational systems and completed work results. And in the department, they also support other business units by evaluating new technology and exploring opportunities to further leverage existing applications. And he works with users of enterprise apps to align business processes and application functionality that helps meet the company objectives and externally driven requirements. Daryl, we're absolutely delighted to have you too, so welcome to the webinar. I'm now going to turn the microphone over to you.
Well, thank you. And it's really is that role in evaluating new technology and the ability to leverage existing applications that, in combination with a very persistent account manager, that introduced me to Invista and created my role in evaluating the Invista software and building his business case. And I am thankful for that account manager's persistence, because he helped me to look good this year. It really is a fantastic product, and as Margaret mentioned, it does deliver. Mark mentioned as well, you're only months away from your ROI, and that same statement held true with Washington Gas. I will provide a little bit of background about Washington Gas, and then we'll dive into the case study. Washington Gas is located in the D.C. metropolitan area, serve about 1 million customers in Northern Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. They have about 13,000 miles of distribution pipe, and they have a traditional annual customer growth rate of somewhere between 2% and 3%. I think that you'll find that Washington Gas is a typical LDC, and its issues are so that most LDCs face. My company and my business unit in particular has 2 goals, or more than 2 goals, but 2 of the goals that we have are to improve system reliability and to reduce construction unit costs. Traditionally, we're given a flat replacement capital budget, which sometimes is an issue because so much of that budget is consumed by road projects. And when I talk about road projects, these are really road improvement projects by either private or public entities that require Washington Gas to relocate its facilities. Other parts of that replacement spending may be mandated programs that may or may not improve system reliability, but still nonetheless must be performed and consume resources within that budget. And the last portion that you see there in green represents our discretionary spending that we can decide how we want to spend those funds, and typically they are projects that improve system reliability. The other particular challenge that we have is that the paving restoration costs are consuming more and more of overall project costs. And a lot of that is due to more extensive paving restoration requirements by our jurisdictions. So the challenge for Washington Gas is really trying to find creative ways to make that dollar go further. Some of the strategies that we've employed over the years have included actively participating in project coordination meetings with each jurisdiction, using progressive construction methodologies such as keyhole construction and pipelining projects. We've also invested in technology. We have a GIS system, work management system, asset decision support or risk model, jurisdictional paving schedule manager, and most recently an Invista subscription, which is, of course, the topic of today's discussion. When working with Invista, we opted to take a phased approach. And in the first phase of that, one of the early steps was to gather the various directors and brainstorm some opportunities. We looked at whether or not there were opportunities to save money with our system replacement and new construction projects, whether there are opportunities to increase revenue or create targeted marketing campaigns in the marketing arena, and also if there were some applications that we could use for our maintenance activities. We developed a business case framework with having a thought process that if you begin with the end in mind, that you can conduct a very thorough evaluation when it is time to make a decision. And we design work processes. The last bit, which I think was also very important, is that we set up weekly meetings with our target users. And that encouraged them, at least on a weekly basis, that they need to log into the system and perform some tasks. And because of that, we were able to have consistent feedback and also maintain engagement with Invista. By the end of the phase, we felt we knew a lot about the product and how it fit into our business processes. And here, this is a slide of one of the business processes and how we felt we could take advantage of opportunities with replacement projects. And in the application, Invista, there's a couple of different concepts that we'll talk about today, one of which is opportunities. These are jobs or projects that are planned by others that may present, thus the name, an opportunity for Washington Gas, in our case, to coordinate and do some cost sharing or cost avoidance. In this workflow, we look at extracting data loaded by others into our asset decision application, which is optimized for Washington Gas. It's running its own analysis and calculations and determine whether or not to pursue that as a new project. From that moment, it goes through the processes within our work management system, and then we update Invista with our plans. In the next workflow, we'll take a look at the scheduling of operations work. And this is really our maintenance activities. In this workflow, we really are looking at data that's being entered by other users within Invista, as well as we take an extraction of data from our work management system and load it into Invista. From there, now we have a comparison of two different data sets. And our work planner is able to run queries. As Margaret showed you in the previous slide, there's query capability within the application. And we can see, based on our data in comparison with the other data loaded into Invista, what opportunities lie in there for us. And if that opportunity allows us to perform the work and still be in compliance in terms of its time frame, then we can adjust our schedule accordingly. We can perform our work in advance of or in conjunction with a road improvement project and avoid that paving cost. So that set the foundation for the next phase with Invista. And I'll say that a couple lessons that we learned from the first phase is that our user group became very familiar with the product, and we actually discovered an unexpected benefit, and that deals with the paving condition index that Margaret touched on earlier. Now, for us, it meant that the paving condition is very important when we look at keyhole construction. The paving has to be of a certain quality for us to use that type of method, and for us, it required a field visit by a supervisor to inspect. When we found that that index was being completed by our jurisdictions, then it saved that field visit and allowed us to do more efficient planning. In addition, we were very in touch with the quality of external data to the ability to perform analysis. And by the end of this phase, we're able to get that quality data from external users. Now, I'm going to go through a few slides that take a closer look at the application. This screen here is the results of a query run against conflicts. Now, it's a split screen, as you can see, the top half of the screen being a map, and in the project that you can see up there, centered in the map, illustrate a conflict between a road improvement project and a proposed Washington Gas project. The lower half of the screen will show, and the arrow will indicate, the particular job that's being displayed in the map. If you take we can take a look at the details by looking at the conflict detail window, which is there on the next slide. Now, by opening the contact detail window, we can see what indeed is the source of the conflict. I think Mark mentioned earlier that conflicts are both issues of space or spatial criteria as well as temporal. We are actually trying to perform work in the same place at the same time. In this particular case, if you look at the top, the middle portion of the screen, it indicates the Washington Gas project and it shows its own start and end dates. In that same left-hand side of the screen, in the lower portion, you can see the Montgomery County project and its time frames. And right now we have an issue of where the Washington Gas project is scheduled to complete actually beyond when the Montgomery Road project is scheduled to begin. Now, this is an actual job. Some of the dates have been changed for the purposes of this illustration, but seeing this information by Montgomery County, who was just in a trial period at the time, we were able to reach out to Montgomery County and adjust our project, and because we did so, we actually saved about $80,000. And it's nothing more than we didn't change scope. It was really just a matter of moving the begin date, which was we had the discretion to do. Here's a different example of a moratorium. And this is, and it varies by jurisdiction, and I believe sometimes types of road. After a road improvement project, oftentimes jurisdictions will have moratoriums in which you cannot make any street cuts on that street. And so in this particular example, again, the project is highlighted and centered on the map, and then it's also highlighted in the bottom section of the screen, and with the project. And in this shot, you can see that by hovering your cursor, you can bring up an actual detail window right there within the map, and it provides some detail about the independent projects. You go on to the next slide. Again, here's the contact window, and we can see again there's just by shifting dates, we're able to avoid a moratorium. Now, this again is a real job for Washington Gas. If we're able to adjust the time frames here, we're able to save probably between $10,000 and $15,000. In some cases we aren't able to make those changes. In some cases it's a matter of not going into an intersection that was discretionary. In some cases you may see a conflict in which our facilities really are not in the road and there's no work to do. But many times there are many examples of the project one we saw a few slides earlier and these moratoriums that lead to real dollars, real savings. And then we get to here we are, subscription results, and this is really the big slide, the big point. In the points of real interest here is that in just the first 4 months of our second phase, we realized $250,000 worth of cost avoidance. And for us, I describe it as cost avoidance because we opted to reallocate that savings or that money to perform other replacement work. Again, our goal is to improve system reliability. But for others, you may decide to allow that to flow to the bottom line. In addition, we found another $50,000 of potential savings within the next 5 months. In the next year, we identified over $1 million. And so these are all encouraging things. And this is with a limited number of people in our ecosystem. As time progressed and some of the results are shared, and more and more parties are joining our ecosystem, so the potential is really amazing. Some of the keys to continued success, as we view it, is that we want to make sure that we protect data integrity. As other people enter the ecosystem, it's imperative that we understand what their processes are in terms of as it pertains to what their data means. And so we've talked about having relationships or establishing new relationships with folks to understand what they expect their frequency of data loads or data maintenance to be. Is also how they expect to use the various statuses of their projects. Internally, we want to expand the utilization of the tool by integrating it with our asset decision support application, possibly with our work management system, and looking at other types of work that we may use to drive other benefits. Well, I thank you. I hope that this was helpful, and I look forward to the questions and answers.
Well, thank you, Daryl. And folks in the audience, we're going to get to your questions in just a moment. We've got quite a few questions wanting to have some information about dollar figures and we're going to do the best we can to get to that. But now, we'd like to get your feedback, and I'm going to launch the second poll. And as you can see on the screen today, based on today's discussion, which of these outcomes that you heard about from Margaret and Daryl would be most valuable to your organization? And as we did with the last poll, go ahead and check all that apply. Would it be real-time mapping of projects, sharing project information amongst agencies and utilities, or automatic email notification of conflicts to affected parties, or the integration of multiple types of data for decision support? And the last option is knowledge of upcoming projects for cost savings potential. So I'm going to, while we're waiting for the final votes to come in and tabulate it, I'm now going to ask that Mark and Margaret and Daryl step back up to the virtual panel, and we'll get ready to start asking the audience's questions in just a moment. I'll go ahead and close the poll. We'll share the results. And it looks like just about everybody who's voted has, so thank you. Let's take a look at the results. And I'm now going to bring them back up on the screen. And it looks like, according to the results, that 67% would find value from real-time mapping of projects, followed by 79% sharing project information amongst agencies. And then, not in any particular order, but 50% like the auto email notification of conflicts, and 46% on integration of multiple types of data. And then the last was 68% having knowledge of upcoming projects for cost-saving potential. Well, that's terrific, and thank you so much for that. And now let's bring back our panelists, and let's start taking some questions from the audience. Margaret, I have a question here for you. How did you justify spending on new technology in this economy to your administration? If you could give us a little bit of your experience on that.
Well, actually, I was somewhat floored at the affordability of the software. I didn't find that it would be too difficult, and actually we had a conflict during that time whereby the water people cut into a brand new road, and their paving cost to repair that road would have covered 3 years of the Invista's fee for us. So it wasn't a hard sell at all.
Great. Daryl, I have a question here, and I hope I'm pronouncing the name right, from FOD. How does Washington Gas adjust its business practice for new services on moratorium streets?
For new services. Now, I will say that if we're talking about new construction for the purpose of new business, you don't typically have a lot of latitude with new construction because you've committed to customers that you're going to provide them service at a particular time. Now, it is a bit different with replacements because you do have some discretion as to when you perform that work, and that's where it's really advantageous to see the moratoriums in the other projects in that type of environment. What we didn't have before at Invista was timely indication that we were actually working in a moratorium space. And so what we do now is that if we can see that it's a moratorium, which Invista allows us to do, then we can adjust our schedule accordingly.
Thanks, Daryl. Margaret, here's one from Brian. Are there actual dollar figures associated with the savings graphic that you showed that you can share?
I can probably do that. I think what would be more important or meaningful is just to know how those are developed. Basically, we have two types of road now. We have good roads and not so good roads. And if you're cutting into a good road, then the restoration requirements is much more extensive than if it's a not-so-good road. And basically that's how we calculated the savings is, and also, I'm going to ask Mark to respond to that because he was very helpful. I didn't have the time or the wherewithal to put all this analysis together, and Mark did it. Mark, can you speak to that?
Sure. So we did the analysis initially manually off of our systems of where all the conflicts were and where either BGE or the DPW department, which which is basically water and wastewater, altered their schedules. And we did calculate over a whole series of different projects what the cost savings is. And if there's permission for Margaret, we could be able to share that with people. I will as well, reiterating a bit, this is such a valuable thing for our customers that we've actually gone ahead and now automated that calculation within the application. So it's both a dashboard view of the total cost savings, but as well very detailed table views of each one of the different projects with their relative cost savings, which is important to understand the detail when explaining it, but as well prioritizing possibly where you're focusing on coordinating work.
Mark, as long as you're up, there's a question from Joe. What is the annual subscription fee for both the City of Baltimore and Washington Gas?
I'm in product management. I'm not actually in the specific sales, but I can tell you the model of the pricing.
Sure.
And that is basically it's with the municipalities. It's based on the population that the municipality serves, and with the utilities, it's the number of customers that they actually serve. It's a sliding scale model based on how large you are. Is fundamentally what it is.
Great. Daryl, here's a question for you. How is what we've heard from Invista different from putting projects into a standard GIS?
Good question. Well, we certainly had that capability, and we've used that in previous years. But one of the key differences is really the how you acquire that data, the acquisition of the data, and also the maintenance of it. And before we began to use Invista, we had to take data that was in various different formats and didn't oftentimes meet all the needs and load it into a couple of different applications and get it to our GIS. And also, it was static. Now with Invista, it's that own entity. They're able to load it in. They are encouraged and send it to load it in and to maintain that data. So you're dealing with dynamic data. You're dealing with complete data as it pertains to spatial and temporal elements.
Great.
Mike, may I say something?
You certainly may.
This is Margaret. What we might not have captured here is that each participant within the system loads their own data. So the gas company loads their data, the road people load their data, and the road people can't change the gas people's data. So you have that protection on your information.
Excellent. And actually, Margaret, I have a question here for you from Teresa. If you could answer, how do the private utilities participate? Thinking of phone, cable, and internet.
How do they participate?
Yeah, how would they participate in such a project that you've been describing?
Well, we have for gas, they're a member of the ecosystem, and so they load their own information. In the City of Baltimore, we have the city owns the conduit system, and the conduit carries the electrical and telecommunications. So we have our conduit people participate as well. Right. Also, the major telephone company has a franchise in the right-of-way. They also participate, but they have very little changes in the public right-of-way. But they do participate, and I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Margaret. Well, folks, we're unfortunately getting close to the end of the hour, and we want to keep our commitment to you to let you take advantage of any remaining time we have and have Mark or Margaret or Daryl provide some closing comments. And before we do that, remember you will be receiving a short survey at the end of the webinar. We'd really love to get your feedback on how it met your expectations. And again, those questions that we couldn't answer on air, and unfortunately there's a lot of them, but fortunately we're delighted that we stimulated your interest, you will be getting a response in the next few days. We promise that, as well as a link to the copy of this webcast. So Mark, let me ask you, are there some closing comments you'd like to leave the audience with?
I guess basically it's terribly satisfying as a software professional to be part of something that's solving an important set of issues for folks, and I'm thrilled by the enthusiasm, with customers like Daryl and Margaret.
Thank you very, very much. And also, extra special thanks to our case study presenters, Margaret B. Martin of the City of Baltimore, and of course Daryl Jackson of Washington Gas for taking time, and Mark for being with us, and naturally special thanks to Invista for making today possible, and Directions Media for being one of our media sponsors. Again, this is your moderator, Mike Agron, saying thank you. Have a terrific rest of the week. We're so glad you could join us, and bye for now.